Shel from Paper Rock to Your Studio, and today I'm showing you a paper painted collage mixed media piece that I did on this MDF canvas from the dollar store. It cost $1 because it's from the dollar store, and so I just decided to go ahead and paint over the top of it with gesso and do some of my own art on top. But the first thing that I did was make myself a little illustration sketch on deli paper because I knew that I might want to use these pieces as patterns, which I did end up doing, well, somewhat. I did. And today's the first day of fall or autumn, whichever you want to call it. And so I wanted to make a happy fall, y'all, a little decoration. This is a 6x6 piece. Not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I was thinking about when I was a kid, the main fall decoration was scarecrows, and my relatives would put a scarecrow on a hay bale, which in the place that they lived was something easy to get. I mean, here in Arizona, I could get a hay bale. Where did I get a hay bale? But anyway, that was something that you put on your porch, maybe if you dried out stalks of corn or wheat or something, and that was how you decorated for fall. So I decided to give homage to the scarecrow and make a little fall piece. So I'm using my mechanical drafting pencil with the 2B lead to draw my illustration, and I'm using a white eraser and then also a pen eraser, which has a teeny tiny little eraser head on it, and that comes in handy for when I'm drawing all these little pieces of corn. I need to erase the insides, and it would be really hard to do with that bigger pencil. I will put a link to this eraser in the description box below, where you can get it from Amazon. Handy little thing to have. And I put a little crow on his shoulder because do scarecrows really actually scare anything? They're too friendly looking. They're smiling. I mean, they're not going to scare anything. And then I add, I fill in with, I got a couple pumpkins, I've got some ears of corn, I've got some corn stalks, and then off in the background, excuse me, is the farm in the distance with the hills, the rolling hills, and the fields that are drying out. So then I go back to my canvas, which is pretty much dry now. Remember, this isn't a canvas, it's a piece of wood, well, particle board, MDF, whatever you want to call it. So it's nice and hard, and it makes it easy to do collage over the top. Canvas has some give to it, and I do mixed media collages and paper paintings on actual canvases, but this becomes really easy because it's stiff. It's not going to squish when I push my collage onto it. But before I start my collage, I'm just doing kind of an underpainting, painting in the background. I'm not going to collage every inch of this. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I cover every single piece of the surface with paper, but in this case I'm going to paint a background and then collage the foreground, which is the scarecrow, and I do end up doing the pumpkins and the house as my collage or paper painted elements. So sometimes when I make a paper painting, I don't show it on YouTube because it takes too long. I just can't condense all that work down into 20 minutes, which is my self-imposed limit for what I do on my channel. So you guys might think that I don't do it as much as I actually do. I do it a lot. It's just for the big pieces, I can't show them on YouTube. And they're starting to stack up, so I need to start selling them. But with a 6x6, this one took me 3 hours, 24 minutes. So there is some places that are cut out, some places that it jumps to something else. Because I was doing something repetitive, you didn't really need to see. And also, most of this is sped up to 8 times fast, and that's what I have to do to get it to fit into 20 minutes. So I'm still painting my background. We'll talk a little bit about acrylic paint again, just in case you haven't been paying attention or you haven't watched my videos before. The paints that I'm using are from Decoart, and they are a fluid acrylic paint. But unlike a craft paint, they are pigmented, very highly pigmented, just in a fluid format instead of a heavy body. I prefer these because I don't get as much brush marks, and they're just, I'm not having to constantly mix water into the paint to make it what I feel is easy to flow as I'm painting. It's just what I prefer. However, just like with all artist grade pigment, the opacities are different. Some are more translucent, some colors are very translucent, some are kind of translucent, some are very opaque. And so when I'm doing a painting like this, I tend to mix my first layer of painting, if I'm painting one thing over another thing, with titanium white, because titanium white is very opaque. And for this orange, the cad orange and the primary yellow, they're not opaque, they're translucent. So when I paint orange over the background, you will see the strokes from the things that are in the background. And I don't like that. So I would rather go ahead and mix my paint with titanium white, which lightens it up, do a layer, and then go back and you put the orange over the top of it. It's an easy way for me to do it. So I am still adding detail. I'm layering the colors. I started with a light color green, and then I go back over it with darker and darker, to make shadows and things. It's a process. Just like anything, there's layers on top of layers on top of layers. It's just the way it is. So now I'm starting my paper painting or my collage, and the way that I'm going to do this is to use deli paper. So I've taken my little drawing and I've put black lines around the things that I want to make as collage, and then I trace over them again with a scrap paper, and that's still deli paper. Remember, it's a heavy paper but it's translucent, not so heavy. In fact, it's thin, but it's strong, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Not heavy, but strong. So if you try to do this with tissue paper, it doesn't really work. The tissue paper just tears when I put the wet matte medium on there, but the deli paper works great for this. And it's something that it's like a little shortcut that I've created for myself when I do these pieces. The deli paper will be sandwiched in between the top layer and the canvas, and no one will ever see it. So it's fine. It works really. I can do my pieces a lot faster when I do it this way than if I try to like tear and fit into little areas. And that also, I've noticed, becomes kind of stiff because I'm constantly trying to tear a straight line and then fit a straight line into some place that might be curved. It's more stiff looking, so I prefer to do this. So I've drawn out all my different pieces that I plan on making different colors, and I am using my scraps, which are in my color boxes. These are plastic boxes that I sort all my little scraps of paper, all different types of paper. There's jelly prints, there's painted papers, there's dyed papers, there's little bits of scrapbook paper that might be left from something, just all kinds of different stuff. If I have extra paint, I might use a credit card and scrape that paint onto a piece of deli paper and let it dry. Under paper, all that type of stuff. I tear it into smaller pieces and put them in these boxes. And then they're sorted by color and easy to find. I'm also using some different book text. The side of the house is darker than the front of the house, so I used a more aged piece of book text for the side and then a more normal colored one for the front. So this is just the way that I like to do paper painting or collage, paper piecing, some people call it, but it's kind of a hybrid of all those things, I guess, is what it is. So then I am now cutting out all my pieces of my Scarecrow, and kind of laying it down so that I can get the areas correct where I'm going to put everything. Putting the band on my hat. Just generally cutting out and laying down things. Then I decide that the Scarecrow is stuffed with straw or hay. So I'm going to need a lot of little teeny tiny pieces of straw or hay. And this is probably the thing that took me the very most time because I had to put down all those little pieces sticking out of his clothes, making him hair, teeny tiny thin little pieces. So the way that I started it and the way that I did most of it was to attach the straw to the clothing. So like where the straw would be sticking out from the bottom of his jeans, I turned that over, put the straw onto the bottoms of the jeans, sticking out, and then I trimmed it to fit. And in that way, I was able to put all the little bits and pieces of straw that I needed to have. Things that you have to think about. Is the straw sticking out over the shoes, or do I put the shoes on top of the straw? Well, the straw is going to be out over the shoes, so I had to put the shoes, attach the shoes to the back of the piece. Does that make sense? Making little sandwiches, straw sandwiches. So then I skipped a part where I did the shirt and the going out over the gloves and all that stuff, and then now I'm just I've moved to the part where I'm doing the hair. And then I decide that the two pumpkins need to be collaged as well, and I use a couple jelly prints for that. I thought that they were fading too much into the background, so I decided to go ahead and collage them as well. So the collaging is about done. I have to put a few little pieces of green along the bottom of the house over here because it looks really weird. It has some bushes or something around it. And it did, in the drawing, it had like a little lean-to type hay barn, but I didn't end up putting that in the picture because it was already, there was too much straw sticking out of his head. It was in the way, and I'd already glued all that down. So what I use to glue that, by the way, is Liquitex Gel Matte Medium. It's my preferred paper painting glue. So now I have out my Faber-Castell Artist Brush Pit brush pins. I have the whole set there. I think there's, I don't even know how many's in there, but 84 or something like that. And I'm using them to start adding shadows, highlights, and details. I could have continued with the acrylic paint, but now I've got the glued stuff on there. It's dimensional. It's easier to just go ahead and use the brushes. These are India ink brush pens. India ink brush pens that dry permanent. So they work good for this. Easy to control. Can make very fine lines. Touch up the details with them. I have all those alcohol markers, and I probably could have done the same thing with those, but I didn't want to go look at my chart and figure out what colors, that's really like stopping me from using those alcohol markers, is that I have to look at the chart to find out what the color is in the pen, because so many of them have the same plastic tip on the end. They're all the same color, but they're not the same color. And so I'm getting a little bit frustrated with that. I think that they should do a better job of labeling their pens. The ones that I got were the Spectrum Noir, and maybe the Copic are better, or some of the other ones, but that's really what's stopping me from using them. I have a whole bunch of them, and I hardly ever use them because I don't want to get out the chart and look at the colors on the chart. I think I'm anti-chart. I didn't know that, but I think I am. So I've also got out my Faber-Castell illustration pens, and on some of it, not all of it, but some of it, I'm going to be going around with black lines, illustration lines, because I just like it. Okay, I just like it. So I'm doing that around the Scarecrow, but I don't draw around everything, just the foreground, I guess. Deciding as I go. And I started out using the small bullet tip. I've also got my white Posca pen, of course. I mean, how many projects have you seen me do in the last almost 2 years that I've been doing YouTube now? I think my 2-year anniversary is in October. That I haven't used white Posca pen. That would be interesting to find out how many videos I don't use the white Posca pen in. Once I found it, I probably didn't know about the Posca pen when I first started doing YouTube videos. But once I found it, it's pretty much been like my companion for everything. When I don't use it, it's like people write me little comments like, you didn't use the white Posca pen. Yeah, you're right. I didn't. Wow. So at this point, I switched to the medium bullet pen because I think my small is running out of ink. I'm going to have to, hopefully I can find it as an individual and not buy the whole pack of pens again. Grr. I think they do probably sell them as individuals. Probably on Amazon. So then I finish up everything. I think I'm pretty much to the point where now I'm just adding highlights with the white Posca pen all over everything. I am not being super precise. I'm being very quick. This is sped up to 4 times fast, but even so, I'm doing it quickly. And I like the way this looks. I like the way it seems to finish. You notice that I didn't go around and do shadows around all my collage this time. A lot of times I do that, and this time I didn't. So this adding of the white highlights kind of has the same effect as that, where it brings the collage portions and the painted portions together and makes it look like a unified piece. So if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to give me a thumbs up and to leave a comment so I know that you were the one that was here. I can't tell who leaves the thumbs up. I only can tell on the comments. And also share. You know, you could post this and say happy fall y'all to your friends on Facebook or something. And subscribe if you haven't already so that you know when things comes out. And of course, turn on the notifications if you really want to know when a video comes out, because it seems to have some sort of a half notification, half not notification if you're just subscribed. And I think that's it for me. And happy fall, everyone. Bye-bye.